Hey, welcome back to Geocaching. We're talking about numbers runs here on today's show. And numbers runs are, briefly speaking, usually something you do in a team setting and try to gather as many caches or find as many caches as you can in a 24-hour period. Is that usually the time limit, or is it sometimes less than that, sometimes more? And how do these competitions work?
That actually works every way that you said there, but for the most part, what people like to do is they want to do it within the same 24-hour period, usually the same day. The reason is if you did all of them on Friday, from midnight till midnight, you get credit for all those geocaches you find for that day. So you want to keep it on the same day as a general rule. But it's a marathon and it's a sprint all at the same time. The idea is to go through and get as many geocaches as you possibly can.
Right, and now when you're depending, the time limit probably depends a little bit on, okay, if you've got children or kids involved, you maybe don't want to do a 24-hour thing, or do you?
No, it depends on how well engrossed the children in on it. A lot of times they can find those geocaches pretty quick, but it's using your best judgment for it. A lot of times they may just say, "Hey, we might do this for 6 hours. Let's see how many we can get in 6 hours."
Gotcha. Okay, so it just depends on what kind of a program you'd like to do. When you're planning a numbers run, what kind of planning should you do? Now, is a numbers run usually planned by some sort of central organizer, or is it usually by the team itself?
A combination of both, but usually there's one person that is responsible for the route you take. That person's going to do certain parameters for the geocaches. In other words, they're going to look for strictly park and grabs because they're quick to find. They're very low in difficulty. Usually they want to shoot for a terrain and a difficulty of 2 or less as a general rule. If you go higher than that, you're going to take longer to find the geocache.
Now, do they ever have... do they ever have events where, say, it's planned and it has to be within a certain area and they'll only accept geocaches of a difficulty of 3 or more to make it like a challenging kind of thing?
There have been events that are made just for doing numbers runs. It's not as common as you would think. A lot of times it's just a bunch of geocachers that say, hey, let's go do this and go that route. But one of the main things that you want to also consider when you do that is the area has to be what is called high saturation. So in other words, a lot of the geocaches are really close together.
Gotcha. And you can see that by looking at some of the maps on geocaching.com, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, let's take a look. We've got a little video of a numbers run that you had participated in recently, and it's just kind of fun to watch because this one in particular just kind of gives you a sense of kind of the camaraderie that's involved there, especially when kids are involved. So let's look at that. It is?
It's hanging.
Well, is it hanging?
Yeah.
Where do you see, buddy?
It's right here.
Look at him.
All right, my man.
That was a bison tube that was suspended there in that grate, right?
Yep, absolutely. And the funny part with that one is that the main people that were trying to find the geocache actually missed that. And we were actually going off to the side trying to think of some other areas where the geocache may have been hidden. Evan, who is one of the children that came along with us, he goes, oh, there it is. And he happened to move away the leaves and just happened to see it suspended off a fishing line.
Right. Now, we talked about this just a little bit earlier and noted that Evan didn't waste any time sticking his hand in there. And all I can think about is the black widow spider from the last episode that we looked at and thinking, I'm not sure I would have done it quite that quick.
Yeah, children tend to have that little bit of extra fierceness to do things more time, but a lot of times in grates, you have a less chance of getting bit by something.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's usually a water flow in there, and then that's not necessarily something in there. So, what are some other important things when you're doing numbers runs? What are some other things to think about besides the concentration and things like that when you're traveling in a crowd?
A lot of times, because it is such a fast-paced marathon that you're doing, keeping your energy up is really, really important. You want to make sure that there are a lot of snacks, a lot of high sugar snacks type things to keep you going, some proteins, things like that as well. Being hydrated is extremely important. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of water, not pop, not soda, water, because that way you're going to be able to stay hydrated longer and better.
Okay, all right. Well, let's look at. There's another video here, and it's kind of fun because it shows the. I'm still new enough that the kinds of geocaches that you find are really fascinating to me, and there's just kind of a little quick run of a number of different types of geocaches besides what you've described to me as kind of the standard ones. So let's take a look at those here.
When doing a numbers run, it's extremely important that you keep the difficulty of the geocache at 2 or less. 1.5 is best. That way you can find them, sign them, move along. Here you see a mystery cache that we found that took actually a series of 2 other geocaches to get the coordinates for this one.
You know, I can really see that when you've got that this is such a great family thing. It's really got the elements there. You've got a bunch of kids there, and that really makes it a lot more exciting. It reminds me of the Cub Scout trips and things like that. That kind of fun with kids.
Yeah, there's an excitement that's involved with it, and especially when you bring kids that, boy, I'll tell you what, it becomes a competition. If you sit there and say, okay, the next person that finds the geocache gets the bragging rights for this,
right.
Oh boy, they go after it.
Yeah, and they want the bragging rights, and they go back to school and they tell everybody about it, and they have a really great time. So anyway, keeping it moving in the fast pace, we've got some chat room questions here before we head to our next segment, and I think I'll just throw these out. A few things here. One of the things, logbook etiquette. What someone asked about that, and what is that?
Geocachers take great pride in their hides. They really do. And for many of them, they want more than just the standard thanks for the cache as a response. Logbook etiquette deals with the content that you put into the log itself. Now, obviously, if it's a smaller log, a lot of times the best you're going to get is your name and a date on it. And logbook etiquette for that particular part isn't as wanted as for, like, say, a regular size geocache. There are people that put all sorts of information into a log, anything from describing what they went through to get to the cache, what they found, why they're there, literally stories, poems, pictures. There's all sorts of things that people can do when they actually find a geocache. And geocachers who hide them really look forward to that kind of interaction.
Oh, sure. Yeah, obviously. You don't go to that kind of trouble and not want to have people say, thanks for the...
Thanks.
Thanks, bye. There's got to be more to it, that you actually paid attention to the kind of work that they did on something like that. Sure. Do you use a rubber stamp for logging your caches?
Very good question. There are people that use that, and to be honest, I personally don't. I think the only reason is because I just haven't gotten one yet. I do know a lot of geocachers that do. It kind of goes into the waymarking type of way back when geocaching first started. That's what they used, was rubber stamps. And a lot of times they'll have their own geocaching alias made into a rubber stamp, and it's just as good as signing the log.
Okay, is it required to have an alias?
Well, for geocaching, you do, just for the fact that you logged into geocaching.com. You make an alias when you do that.
Oh, okay. Because my alias,
but I know people that have come
obvious.
along with me on different geocaching trips that wanted to sign the log anyways, even though they're not necessarily going to get credit for the fine on geocaching.com. They'll put their name in that.
Okay. Yeah. See, mine is Dave Dufour. That's my alias. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, or at least that's my name that's my login name on geocaching.com. So maybe that's different than the alias.
Can be, sure.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm gonna have to go back and look again. All right. Cool. One other question before we before we jump to the next segment, what do you do when law enforcement approaches you on a cache hunt?
Oh, this is a goodie, and it does happen. A lot of times, the main thing that I have to say for something like that, if you are approached by law enforcement, this could be park rangers, this could be a policeman, this could be anybody of authority. What you really want to do is just plain tell them the truth.
Right.
I'm geocaching. I'm playing a game. One of the things that I highly recommend, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, is that to carry pamphlets, printed pamphlets about geocaching. You can get them right off my blog, print them off, put them in your pack, so when somebody does come up to you like a policeman and say, what are you doing? You can hold them and give them a pamphlet and say, this is what I'm doing, this is geocaching, and explain to them what it is. Most of the time, they're going to just say thanks and move on. They're only curious to see what you're doing, and in a lot of times, they want to see, is your car broken down? Is there some way that I can help you? That type of thing. They're just curious about what you're doing.
Right. Or they know of a safety issue that you don't happen to know is there, or something like that as well.
Absolutely.
It depends on the situation, but yeah. I mean, so much the better if you found the cache and you're holding it. You say, see,
oh, yeah.
there it is.
I've actually had times where, one example was a couple of park rangers that approached me while I was doing this, and literally they said, "Could you show me where the cache is?" And that's what I did.
That's good. Great. Okay. Well, we're going to take a break here, and we'll come right back and talk a little bit more about numbers runs and the fun you can have doing numbers runs when we come back on Geocaching World. So don't go away.
Got a question or a comment about geocaching? Send it to geocache@rvnn.tv or leave us a voicemail at 877-578-RVNN, extension 714. Tell us about a cache you especially enjoyed finding, and we may feature it in an upcoming episode. Follow RV Newsnet on Facebook and Twitter, and you can receive text messages to alert you when we're streaming live by texting RVNN to 72727. That way, you can join us live in the chat room, ask questions, and become part of the RV Newsnet family. Remember, any photos or other material submitted to us become the property of RV Newsnet and cannot be returned. For more TV like this from the world of RVs, head to rvnn.tv.